Good morning, everyone, and welcome to June the 4th, Conquer the Clutter podcast. We're going to build on last week when we talked about the unscheduled, and we're going to kind of explore other ways to make friends with time so that we can use the one finite thing we have to start getting projects done in a realistic way, and also stop beating ourselves up for misjudging how much of this finite resource we actually have available to us. So, first, please don't forget, don't move on to this material in your mind and forget about the unscheduled strategy. And just a small reprimer on that is that the unscheduled strategy for managing time, tracking time, is to get a concrete calendar um, that is broken down by half hours, right? And you can buy a calendar book, and you can scan a page of it, and you can blow it up, um, put it on as a document on your computer, or just plain blow it up and print it off and change the date on it. All right. And then just print one off every day. I do that here. I do this I've got a batch of these every day. And that helps me keep track and not get swamped by all the other entries. And when it's today's goal or today's necessary thing that I need to do, I put a red star beside it. Okay, so there's all sorts of ways to use the unscheduled, because that time is gone before you put your feet over the side of your bed, and there's no point, all right, in thinking otherwise. It's gone, it's committed, and you need to factor that in and stop beating yourself up for not meeting the goals. All right, it's a really good strategy. Thank you, Neil Fiore. So next week, we're going to talk about this material. Okay, so after you've finished, how do we actually implement the opening spots on that blank calendar? So after you finish, now that is the important word here, all right? After you've finished, the 15 to 30 minutes of work that you put in toward a goal, block it off as evidence that it has been done, all right? So the other thing, particularly if there's any level of ADHD that you live with, color code the use of that time as it relates to the whichever project you're working on. If you come to this podcast every week, I'm betting that you have more than one or two projects um, on your list of to-dos. All right. So color code, just put a little, I do that on my Google Calendar. My whole Google Calendar is color coded for the different pertinent things. A session is to be confirmed, black. A session has been confirmed, red. A session is not available, yellow. All right. A session has been invoiced, light green. A session has been paid, dark green. And boy, when I look at that, it speaks to me. And it relieves an awful lot of pressure, because depending on what the message is in my mind, and this pertains to doing work according to the same principle, using color coding on a calendar, it will tweak you to shortcut into the mental frame you need, rather than to go through and try to figure out in the plethora of things that you are responsible for today, what was it? And get yourself oriented. It's amazing how maintaining a color code for not every single little thing, but the biggies, all right? The projects. Pick a color code, and when you block it off, that 15 to 30 minutes was done, put its color code dot beside it, all right? Okay, now don't forget to add up the blocks of time to get the total amount of time that you then can reward yourself for, all right? It's important because what you spent with respect to different projects toward your goal, you know yourself by now, all right? You're looking for more strategies, but that does not mean you don't know yourself really well. And it's better to work for you if you can commit yourself to smaller increments of time. So even though I'm asking you now, start to transition out of needing an hour, or that's a 2-hour job and you've got to find 2 hours in your schedule. Chunk it down. Start with 15 minutes. And if you are still okay after 15 minutes, you're not exhausted with the decisions you have to make, add another 15 minutes. But I really think, and I've said this many times, adding one more 15 minutes to that block of time probably is okay. All right. But don't keep adding chunks until you really have your bearings and you know what a half hour is going to take out of you. All right. You've got to factor in all the other parts of yourself that need the energy you're spending on this. And don't undervalue it. I can hear many people saying 15 minutes, I wouldn't get anything done in 15 minutes. You will learn to use that 15 minutes appropriately. All right. If you make it a dread, you keep going for an hour or two, and you're really just getting started on that project, I am betting dollars to donuts that you will have a very negative feeling when it's time to go back to it. You'll probably be saying something to yourself like, oh, I just don't know if I have that steam in the tank. And you know what? You wouldn't be saying that if you were only really committing one definite 15-minute and one more if you have steam in the tank. You finish on a positive. So remember to record, though here's the biggie, all right? Remember to record the progress only after you've completed it each time, which speaks to having that calendar or whatever posted somewhere, all right? So that you can go and physically do it. Because there will be times, all right, in your week where you just don't have that time, all right? Or other things play out to interrupt that time. So it works better to know the time you've got available, and then after you've done something, block it off. Works a whole lot better, people, than using the unscheduled, block off the time that's gone, and then block in periods where you're going to do it. That's can feel like a burden on your back when the day turns south. All right. So if you try when you're beginning this, try it in inverse. You see that there's time, you experience inside, you've got the energy and the focus. Start with 15 minutes. Add one more 15 minutes if you're still in good shape by the end of it, but don't get carried away. Take a break, go and do something else, all right? Because those blocks of time are just a tangible way to also track the fact that you've made progress. All right. Not the same thing when you've got it pre-entered on the calendar and you told yourself that was the time it was going to take to do the job, which it never was. All right. But you didn't know it at the time. You did it in good faith. And then you don't finish it. You end as a feeling of failure. All right. Do it the other way. Keep track of your progress toward each goal. All right. Now, here are the benefits. If you record the time only after you've made the effort, you've actually done the work for that period of time, the focus on what you've accomplished is an honest reward. All right. There's no questioning it later when you're feeling negative or you're feeling overwhelmed. It's an actual proof. The other thing too, this is kind of tied to another way when you're getting started and you've got a lot to do. I strongly recommend that you start in one corner and all you commit to is 15 minutes and one item at a time. All right, pick one item up at a time and resolve it. I did this yesterday with somebody in a session, and we cleaned off a complete dining room table inside of an hour. All right, one at a time. Because when you're looking at the whole mass in an area, when you leave that work period, you need to have something to look back on and go, you know what, I've got all this, the rest of this to do. That's true. But I finished that. All right. And that, when you get discouraged, that gradually progressing more and more and more, no matter how small the progression is proof to you that you made a promise to yourself, you kept the promise, there's the evidence, and that will be in your low moments. All right. That will be a reward to yourself. All right. So you may, and it prevents you too from leaving the work you're doing feeling like a failure because you thought that in an hour you could get a 4-hour job done. And so you put an hour into it, but you come out feeling 3/4 like a failure. All right. So it's important that, and this is like fundamental, all right? It's important that whatever you say you're going to do, you keep your word to yourself. Because the self-respect we have, the confidence we have is based on telling yourself the truth. And it's easier to do that, more reliable to do that when you chunk down jobs so that they are infinitely doable, right? If you take on the world and your house feels like the world right now, and you're not able to do that, don't do that to yourself. You make a commitment. It's realistic because you're going to realize today, most of the time I have is gone. It's a busy, busy day, even before I get out of bed. You're only going to promise a part of the available time that is doable and you finish on a positive. When you record the work that you've actually done, you're also far more likely to see yourself to that degree as a success. And monitoring the progress session after session after session is a repeat reward. And tell me this. I'm going to use a little metaphor here. So a day that seems like a burden is like, and I hope nobody here really loves Brussels sprouts, is like a bowl of Brussels sprouts. All right. but a day that feels manageable and that you leave it at the end, not feeling like the biggest success in the world necessarily, but that you did what you said you'd do, all right, is like a bowl of the best thing that you love. For me, it would either be ice cream or it would be chocolate with caramel. All right. So, whatever that is, when you keep your word to yourself and you chunk things down and actually complete it and track it somehow concretely, you're choosing between leaving that work with the taste of Brussels sprouts or the taste of the thing that you reward yourself the most with. Right? What does that do? It cues you and it entices you to go back to it. All right. You're not going back to the Brussels sprouts. 9 times out, I mean, that's just the highest probability is we're not opting for Brussels sprouts. Okay. The thing that feels the best to us, that has meaning for us as a reward, also so significantly increases the likelihood that when you go back, whatever you invest is going to be productive, all right, because you've already experienced it as a success. And the sooner after you finish it that you record is after the work period, the more reinforcing that positive is. So do it right away. You finish the job, particularly when you're just getting started, getting over the humps. All right. And there are some periods in our life where the whole floor feels like humps. So go and record it right away. That's an immediate gratification. All right. So what does that do if you do that? It seriously reduces the likelihood that you will opt for procrastination. So to reduce procrastination, registering that productive period immediately, even if it's only 15 minutes, hopefully no more than half an hour, is recording your effort rather, and it's prompting the release of dopamine, serotonin. It's giving you that hormonal bath. Even just a little one is better than none, right? It's better than leaving a project because you thought you'd have it done by then. And what kind of hormonal bath do you think you're giving yourself in that case? All right. So it sounds so simple, and it is. You just have to do it. So the more you prompt yourself with the reward, after a little bit of time, okay, it's going to be a whole lot easier for you to plan what you need to do with what you have available successfully, appropriately, all right? And knowing that you're going back to something that is manageable. It's not done. It's not finished. Okay. We can't have a party yet that it's finished, but it's going to motivate you to go back and return because that project, even when it's partially undone, feels like a reward every time you put your 15 to 30 minutes of work in. Now, I know this is completely contrary, all right, to the experience you may have had already. Please try it. It isn't a lot of work for nothing, right? And it's a good way as well to recognize that even a half hour, 15 minutes, a half hour, is a worthwhile effort because there's a whole lot more chance today, people, and every other day of the rest of our life when we're going to be able to carve off 15 minutes without it having a negative effect on something. Those 15-minute intervals, they're almost a certainty. When we promise the world, that is not a certainty. All right. So we are training ourselves to use small blocks of time repeatedly to finish a project, and a lot more projects will get finished. Don't underestimate it. Don't under-reward it in your own mind. And don't wait. I'm asking you to try this week for sure. Give yourself the experience. All right? Don't wait and promise all the time you believe you need. Right? Because the chances are that time is only rarely going to be available to you. This way, you are guaranteeing that if you continue those small chunks of time, you will finish that project. All right. So the other thing the unscheduled shows you is that when you have small bits of time available and you do grasp that opportunity, you are more likely to use it effectively. You're not starting from a dead stop with no orientation as to where the tools are, what is this project anyway, where are the home spaces for these things. 15 to 30 minutes that you dedicate towards your goal keeps you on track. All right. And you don't have to reorient yourself to the project when you go back to it, but you do when you need a large period of time, you exhaust yourself, you run out of time, you're only part of the way finished of the goal you set for yourself, and you have to start again the next time. There's a whole reorienting your brain to it that has to happen. All right. A third benefit to the unscheduled and using 15 to 30-minute blocks of time as often as they come up in your day toward applying them toward a goal that is important to you. All right. And then recording it. All right. Get yourself a blackboard, put it up, do this thing on a blackboard. I do it on a whiteboard. I've got a double whiteboard here, and I do it all the time. All right. It's a really great way to self-monitor, to stay in touch with yourself. Okay, so self-monitoring is key because it's shown to increase the amount of time that we actually spend on work. We're more likely to come back to that project. And we're more likely to come back to it with a very different attitude. All right. Self-monitoring also helps us to avoid or resist the temptation to procrastinate. Because when we started something, we didn't finish it, it's a big enough project, we've got to go back to it, and we go back to it with the same attitude, Netflix begins to look really good. All right. Or any other distraction is a huge temptation. Why? Because we've gone about it the wrong way. And all we're doing is bathing ourselves in negative hormone. You didn't succeed the last time and it's still there nagging you. Do you want to go back to it with that attitude? Try it. Please try it. It is a huge step forward. All right. Now, the fourth thing that this self-monitoring really benefits us with is so many people have told me in this podcast and everywhere else that I work that they underestimate the length of time a project will take. Okay, and they find it extremely difficult, right? When you do it in small chunks and you record it, and you go back and you use that as self-monitoring and sort of a little pat on the back. Look, I did do that. I know it's not the end of the world. I know it's not a lot, but I did it. All right. And you can say that to yourself. The number of times you go back with these small chunks of dedication to the project deliberately, you're going to be developing a much more realistic idea, experience of how long it really does take to do that. All right. And that's going to help you enormously, because as you're deciding to put things down rather than put them away, that is going to factor in your brain. That's one of the reasons why probably 20 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating, I don't hoard, but I do say to myself, Elaine, just do it now. It's never going to get easier. You put it down, you're going to have 5 jobs, Elaine. When next time you see that, you've got 5 jobs rather than 1. All right. And the 5 jobs are A, to notice it, B, to figure out what it is, 3, to figure out what the heck it's doing there, 4, to figure out where does that go, and 5, to pick it up and put it there. Whereas it's right in your hand or it's right in front of you, and it's like a very few steps to put it away. When you've factored in and you've got that far more realistic experience with how long a project does take when you let it build up, okay, it is far more likely to talk to you and convince you it would be a really great idea just to finish this small thing now. Walk across the room and put it away. Stop for a second, look at the thing and think, if I was looking for you, where would the first place be I'd look? And go and make that space its home space. All right. Now, if the home space is already filled with something else, that's okay. Put it as close to where it goes as you can get it. And just remark that solving that is the buildup there doesn't create a safety or a fire hazard or a mobility hazard, navigation hazard. That's a smaller project. You'll get to that at some point. All right. But now, when you think, where is that? You know where it is. It isn't somewhere lost in a churn of a pile. So it's a really good step. I think we're at number 5th benefit, okay, to this self-monitoring and tracking. Because don't do it without the tracking. The tracking is your reward. The tracking is the verification of your affirmation to yourself that you are making gradual progress and you are deliberately going back to it repeatedly with small chunks of time. Right? Just even found time. All right. Now, you might find that your feelings about what you've done don't actually match the numbers. All right. And it's more likely, however, that there's going to be satisfaction when you look at the number of hours that you spent on something and you see progress. It doesn't feel like you crossed the Olympic finish line. That's true. Let's not exaggerate it, but it does feel like that was a good investment of time. Okay. And you're more likely to be telling yourself, okay, how many more of the 15 minutes to 30 minutes do I think that'll take? Okay, where in the calendar would I find that? Depending on what the priority of this project is. All right, this isn't war, pestilence, and famine, people, that we have to overcome life-threatening things. This is something that can fit into a list of priorities. So you're like a 2nd or 3rd priority. Okay, so the other, where's the time? That has to go to the 1st priority. Yeah, I need that one more. But you know what? Here, I have this here. I could pencil in, think about doing more work on whatever it is. All right, give it a name. Okay. If you record those hours, though, at least you have tangible proof that when you're discouraged and you're dissatisfied with yourself and your progress, that tangible proof will counteract, maybe not 100%, but it'll do a whole lot better than sitting feeling defeated and like this is never going to end. All right. And that reaffirmation, that counteract the feelings of dissatisfaction and disappointment when you look at the log, that challenges all of the less than positive subjective interpretations, depending on mood, depending on how else the day is going, of how much time you spend and what that means for how much progress you've made. All right. It challenges with proof when you underestimate or you undervalue the progress you've made. So, how long do things actually take to accomplish? How many people here, put your hands up, please. Don't unmute, but put your hands up. How many people think that a project has a definite amount of time that it takes to fix? It's sort of like almost a fixed amount of time. How many people think that there is a fixed amount of time? Okay, we've got quite a few hands up. It takes the time it takes, people. It takes the time it takes. And you've got to allow yourself that. But please, you've got to start with the priorities. And the priority is always fuel load, combustible fuel load, the amount in an environment. That's a priority, any way you look at it. Navigation and mobility, safety, that is a priority. Okay, we've talked about, go back to one of the other podcasts where we talk about the safety corridor. Reopening the safety corridor and maintaining it is always your top priority, as well as avoiding contamination or infestation. All right, so on the smaller projects, small chunks of time regularly dedicated will get you there. Okay. Many people, in fact, most of the people I talk with, have told me that they underestimate how much time it will take to complete something. When you're discouraged, okay, here's the corollary to that. When you're discouraged or you're exhausted, you're feeling defeated, you're feeling overwhelmed, and you opt to procrastinate, to put off even starting because it feels overwhelming, know this: you're in a state of mind where you are actually overestimating how much time is needed. When you're in that negative state of mind, remind yourself you're overestimating because it feels like a mountain. It isn't a mountain. It's one thing at a time that gets resolved. One thing at a time. Give it the 15 minutes to 30 if you've done this for a little while. Pick up one thing at a time and resolve it. All right? Putting off a project because you think that you can't do it now, largely because it feels like it'll take forever or a lot more time than you have. In both cases, whether you underestimate or overestimate, the result is likely that you'll do nothing. Okay. You know why? It's not you being a failure. It's not you being less than. It's that hormonal bath you are sending through your body by what you're saying to yourself. There is not one statement that is 100% the truth. even when you believe you're telling yourself the truth. It's only part of the truth. There's always another factor on the other side. The most positive statement has a negative component. The most negative statement has a positive component. It all depends on what you tell yourself, whether you're going to give yourself the resource of that a hormonal bath. It's sort of like, yeah, I've been out in the garden weeding, and I'm all kind of covered with grass and dirt and whatever, and I feel like, do you want to step into a cold bath, or do you want to step into a warm bath? All right. The negative self-talk is the cold bath. And as far as I know, the only people who get into cold baths have it medically prescribed because of a life-threatening fever. All right. Okay. Go to the positive. What is possible? Access and influence the brain chemistry, because that will give you the capacity to tell time accurately, particularly if you have it recorded. You have evidence. All right. Is it precise? No, but it's really much closer in the ballpark of what the truth is. Start telling yourself the truth. Don't disable yourself with negative self-talk. Why? Because the realization and acceptance of the positive. Yeah, it took 4 days, but you know what? I know that now. That information being processed in your brain, all right, is attached to neurotransmitters like dopamine. All right. I think I would much sooner, unless I was being chased by a bear, all right, have a flush of dopamine through my system than a flush of adrenaline. All right. And dopamine in most of our lives, day to day, as we trudge through what's in front of us, are mightily short of dopamine. All right. So that clock in your brain, and yes, you do have a clock in your brain that tracks time intervals, gets thrown off when you're deprived of dopamine. Okay. That same neurotransmitter that estimates how much time has passed or you will need also diminishes with age. If your timing's off, you may have to practice telling yourself. One way to counteract that wishful thinking, and that's attached to wishful thinking, not clock time, but wishful thinking time. Okay, if only it were true. When your timing's off, you may have to practice telling yourself the time and counteracting that wishful thinking time to improve your ability to tell time compared to what actually is needed and your predictions about how long it will take. All right. One easy way to do this is to estimate how long it takes from the time you hear the alarm in the morning. Just go back to something we all have to do. All right. The time when you hear the alarm in the morning to the time it takes you to leave the house or get your first coffee, whatever it is. Okay. Go back if you're having a hard time. A good way to practice being able to use those found 15, 30-minute intervals to take a load off of a project is to go back and compare it to something that is something you do every day, and you have the ability to mark that time off in your mind. Everything can be compared to that realistic experience. It's a good way. It's sort of like your own measuring tape. All right. All right. And then clock yourself. Or another way is to guess how long it'll take you to complete that task in front of you, and then track it. All right. Learn to use little bits of time. Next, in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about Alan Laken's method. It's called the Swiss cheese method of time management. But it does help us get control of our time and our life. Now, Alan recommends poking holes in large tasks. Why? To get them done. How? By using little bits of time instead of waiting for one large block of time, which may get eaten up some other way. We don't know what's going to come tomorrow, right? That technique, the Swiss cheese method, can be very helpful, all right? Why is it helpful? It helps you start on a project. Today, you have some found time. How much? At least 15 minutes, all right? So you make a start on a project, or you keep coming back to it for just that length of time. It provides momentum because you know it's possible. Of all the things, when you look at the piles and they feel impossible, you've got to translate and somehow turn that to how they become possible. And the Swiss cheese method, using found little bits of time, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It also teaches us to watch out for them and to value any amount of time, no matter how small. It doesn't matter that this goal is going to take 7 hours to accomplish. You don't have to wait until you've got 7 hours to do it. If you just can change your attitude, all right, to the value of small chunks of time repeated often. There are a lot of crucial steps that you can put in, make an impact on a goal. Yesterday, literally, there was a dining room table that was probably maybe the pile on it would have been 8 or 9 inches high. All right. And all we did, I said, will you let me cue you? Yes, she said. She was desperate. Okay. I said to her, okay, pick up one thing. What is it? Where does it go? Go put it there. She said, well, yeah, but I couldn't. No, I said, just one at a time. One at a time. Okay. With a few minutes to spare, and we talked at the beginning of the session, all right, that dining room table was finished. And the things might not have been perfectly put away everywhere, but they were absolutely where they needed to be. Now, the things that went to the bathroom, they might get put in a different cabinet, who knows, but they're there, all right? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can use those few minutes right now, today, to make a list of the projects you have and then prioritize them by color. And then those unfinished projects, you work through them according to priority. Or you can just stand for 15 minutes and look at the piles and the projects and be overwhelmed by them. You choose. You are bigger than they are. You can do this. Okay. If you have a lot of organizing to do, use a few minutes to categorize what needs to be put where. All right. And then any step forward towards your goal is one step more you don't have to do. All right. A little strategy I use is when I'm deciding where something goes, I just literally close my mind and think, if I was looking for you, where would be the most natural place? All right. And it usually, almost always, turns out to be where I'd use it. All right. And that is pretty easy to decide. Now, there are some things that I personally believe you need multiples of. I believe that most rooms require scissors. All right. So, scissor manufacturers, celebrate. Most rooms require a pad of paper and a pen or a pencil. Okay. Where it is has to be visible. So when I'm deciding, I'm in that space and I'm looking for an option about, okay, I know we're in the space where you need to go, but you need to live, but where am I going to put you? I try really hard, and I've said this many times, to put it no more than 4 steps, 5 at the outmost, all right, where I'm going to actually be when I need to use it. And you know what? There's something about that 6th step that just becomes like, put it down, right? So find a home within 4, aim for 4 steps, all right? Okay. Now, if you don't, you'll be punishing yourself or someone else for remaining stuck. We've talked today about probably 3 different strategies and variations on a theme for how to overcome, okay? To stay stuck with significant clutter punishes you, and it probably punishes someone else too, right? So I'm really going to encourage you to pay attention and be aware. Allow yourself to be aware. Ask yourself, where are those small bits of time? And then celebrate any that pop up by surprise. If something gets canceled, you have just inherited a small amount of time. All right. You can use the Swiss cheese method, or you can invest a little more organizing, but you've got long-term payoff to Neil Fiore and the unscheduled time management system. Okay, you choose, but I want you to pick one or the other, and I want you to experiment with it this week. And don't give up. Do not give up. Okay? All right. I'm going to turn off the video now, and we've got 5 minutes to open the mics and talk about this a little bit today. And we'll do more next week of deconstructing how useful this information was.
Can you do it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can.